The Catholics of Oz is brought to you by the Starquest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to episode 57 of The Catholics of Oz. The Catholics of Oz is a show where we discuss faith, culture, and what's been happening from an Aussie perspective. Whether it's synods or science, apostolates and apps, providence or productivity, you can hear it right now on The Catholics of Oz. Hello, I'm Lindsay Sants. Welcome to episode 57 of The Catholics of Oz. Happy to have you joining us for another episode. We've got some great things to talk about today, but before we do, I'd like to reintroduce and re-welcome my locked-down sister, Caroline Knight. Caroline, how are you going?
I am well, thanks. Recovered from a 3-week cold/laryngitis.
Just in time to be trapped at home.
Just in time to be trapped at home for 7 days. Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute, but before we do, Lino also locked down at home and safe and locked away. How you going, Lino? Lino Sabol, I should say. Lino, how are you?
I'm doing well, guys. I'm doing well. Yes, locked down again. God,
yes.
And I can't believe it's been 2 weeks from the last time we had a podcast. Gosh, time flies.
Yeah.
I feel like we should just have a yearly lockdown festival or something just to be, we're used to it, you know. So Caroline, what happened? What happened in the great state of Victoria, Caroline?
So when was it? There was a case of coronavirus acquired case in the community, shall I say, a few days ago. I can't remember what day it was now. Everything's gone to be a blur.
Even earlier, I feel like it might have been last week.
Maybe, yes.
Yeah.
And since then, since it started spreading, it's actually that person, unfortunately, had spread it to quite a few other people. And I think we're up to 40, is it today, or 30, 35?
Somewhere
anyway,
close to 40,
around that number.
Cases.
And we had
All
5
up,
new cases today. So we started off with 10 new cases, 5 new cases, another 5 cases. I think initially it was 20. Anyway, so we've from Thursday past at midnight, we were placed into a hard lockdown for 7 days because since it did get out into the community and it is the Indian variant, which means it is quite contagious and virulent. We had one person in ICU, unfortunately, already.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, we did, an older person, but they've come out of ICU and which is great news.
Oh, good.
So, yes, we've been placed into a hard lockdown to try and prevent any further spread. Unfortunately, there are a lot of exposure sites. Melbourne is very easy to get around and very easy to spread the love. So it's gone around. So we're trying to prevent the spread by being locked down at home for 7 days, hoping it's only going to be 7 days. If it continues if we continue to have numbers every day, I suspect we will be locked down a bit longer. Yes. So here we go again, Melbourne.
When you say that, I think of the Van Halen song. Here we go again. Oh, sorry, no, my
Good.
bad.
No.
White Snake, sorry. Bad.
Yes,
Wrong
still
band,
good.
wrong band.
Still good, yeah.
I'm glad you
Okay.
corrected that, Lino, because people are going to be writing in
I
otherwise.
know. I can
You cannot mix up those
what
two
a bit,
bands.
all these hard rock band.
Yeah, you cannot mix that up.
Aficionados are going, no, it's a wrong
Yes.
band, Lino.
I'm
Especially
sure
my
amongst the
husband, he knows
SQPN
those
audience,
two
there are some
bands
hard
well.
rock
Yes,
bands.
yes,
I'm
he
sure
does.
they're out there.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, so normally it's our practice to have a casual episode, but we thought, well, we set up, we're ready to go for
We were prepared, yeah.
a more professional episode, so we'll do that. Yeah. But depending on how much more prolonged this lockdown is, you might see us going a bit more loopy again, like we did last year. We'll just see how we go.
I hope not. I mean, it is a bit of deja vu, isn't it? Because it was about this time last year where we entered into quite a long lockdown.
Quite long, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, it was so nice. Let me tell you, it was so nice to have freedom for a few months.
It was.
And I just got back into the office at work about March, and now it's, May, and I'm back at home. My big clunking computers are back on my desk from work.
Yes,
so,
me. Yeah, it just feels like you're going around a vicious circle in a funny sense. Not funny.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Yeah, in a horrible sense.
Yeah, in a horrible sense. I wanted to take my kids out somewhere. I don't want to be stuck at home again.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We actually got to see a movie, and we got to go out a few places. It was good. No masks. It was good.
No
but
masks.
Yeah, masks are back. Yeah, here we
now
go.
we're back to masks, and was the 5 reasons. So you can go shopping, caregiving, exercising.
Yeah. Work?
What's the other?
Well, as normal.
Work if you're essential worker, and to get vaccinated. Oh, that's the other point I wanted to make. We are doing the lockdown too because most of us are not vaccinated still. So
yes,
although Lino, we are now in the age group 40 to 49.
I heard that. Oh wait a minute. No,
we're at the lower end, just to let everyone know.
I'm not above 40 yet, Caroline. No. Come on, I'm still like 39 and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, good luck with that, Lino. How's that going?
You wish.
Yeah.
You may look it, but look, the truth is, you don't look your age. It's true, but you are that age.
I must admit, I do need a shave. Like a scruffy hair. Here we go.
You're prepared for lockdown, Lino.
Yes, you're ready to go.
Scruff going, yeah.
And that is I had to ask the Archbishop about what do you happen to his lockdown beard? What happened?
Yes.
We'll have to ask him.
Hopefully, that's coming in the future. The other thing is, so I'm actually 39 and a half, so I'm actually
just under.
I actually can't receive. So the Pfizer vaccine has been opened up to 40 to 50-year-olds, I think it is. 40
to 49 and 50 and above is the AstraZeneca, just because they're worried about the occurrence of blood clots in younger people.
But Caroline, which one are you taking?
It would be Pfizer. Although it's very hard because they just announced this a couple of days ago, and you cannot get a booking. It's just
the phone line's melted.
The phone line crashes, the website crashes. So I'm going to wait a couple of weeks for it to die down a little bit, and also to keep getting over this silly laryngitis thing that I had because because our sister Lindsay had the Pfizer vaccine. It made her quite ill for a few days, and I'm not keen to. If we were anything alike, I'll probably get ill too. So I thought I'll just give myself a little bit of a break before I get ill again.
So Marilyn's okay.
She's fine, but it did really. She had body aches and pains,
knocked her
chills.
out.
Oh my goodness me!
She was quite unwell. It didn't last very long, maybe a few days, but for those few days, she was Mum actually had to go over to her house and help her out. She was that sick, so because she's a nurse, so she is at the front line to get the vaccine. So,
yes, she is. Yes, she is. Also,
Isabel and I have decided that we'll take it one at a time. So
rather
than taking it together, the last thing we want to do is get sick and then have Alexander, our 3-year-old, jumping over us, going, "Mummy, Daddy,
play." But I hope. I hope it will be more widespread soon, vaccinations, because, we want to be protected and not have to go into these lockdowns anymore.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
Anyway, on we go.
Hope it's the last one.
Yeah. Oh, well, who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. All right. So before we continue on with the show, there's a bit of an update of what's happening in our world at the moment. But before we do go on, we'd like to remind you, please, to go to the SQPN Facebook page and to like any posts about the Catholics of Oz and share it on social media, please. We would appreciate that because it does help to get the show out to more people. Don't forget that SQPN is also on Twitter at the handle @SQPN. So you can also go there, like, share, retweet, all those things that get attention for the show to other people, especially people who'd like to hear our content. And if you're listening to the Catholics of Oz for the first time, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, or your favorite podcast player. Don't forget that SQPN also has the show on YouTube. So all of its library of shows are on YouTube, including new ones like Secrets of Science, we're in that one, and also Secrets of Stargate, a brand new.
It's called Let's Science, Lindsay.
Let's Science, which you mentioned there.
Secrets of Science.
Sorry, did I say that? Whoops.
Yes.
And there's also Secrets of Stargate, which is another new one, which I'm loving. I'm just loving reliving Stargate through their discussion, so I can remember the episodes they're talking about. So if you're a Stargate fan, check that one out. So with YouTube, just hit subscribe, hit the bell to get notifications when new episodes are released, and you'll see all of that. I did notice that Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World on YouTube is not the audio; it's actually the video of Dom and Jimmy and their guest. I didn't catch the name because I haven't listened to it yet, so I'm looking forward to watching that episode rather than listening to it. Yeah, so check that out. It's all about what was the psychic reading, what do you call it?
Nostradamus? No,
not that one.
That was the other
the
one.
government program about.
Oh yes, yeah.
About where they read, like he was reading and saw aliens on the moon, and I forgot what it's called.
Yes,
People are
I got
screaming
his
it
book
right now
about
in the
this.
podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. This is what
I
it's
love
called.
that.
Yeah.
Those, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
how can
so
I forget?
yeah.
Oh
Anyway,
my
a
gosh.
person
I
involved in that
apologise.
program, they're actually interviewing as a guest. So I'm looking forward to seeing.
Oh,
that
how
later
did
on.
I miss that they were doing that?
Oh, don't worry. Once we stop recording, we'll remember what it is.
Yeah.
And also, anyway, on your don't forget on your favorite podcast player to please leave us a lovely 5-star rating and some comments. We love the comments when we see them; they make us really happy. But also, this community it's a two-way community. So we might be the ones broadcasting and sharing this with you, but we love to hear back from you as well, and we love to share content and accompany you on your journey, however that's going. So let's move on then, I should say, and we're going to begin with Faith Beyond Borders.
Well, I'm actually feeling rather good about this. I think we've all arrived at a very special place, eh? Oh. Spiritually, ecumenically.
How do you make somebody love you without affecting free will?
Welcome to my world, son. You come up with an answer to that one, you let me know.
Yes, I had to work very hard to pass Latin and theology.
Oh, quite. Those are, of course, the most important things.
Oh, yeah.
I'd sit this one out, Cap.
I don't see how I can.
These guys come from legend. They're basically gods.
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
So this Faith Beyond Borders, we have 2 topics. So we might just I'm actually in a third little one as well. So we might just speed our way through these. So the first one is, at the time of recording, it's actually in Australia National Reconciliation Week. So on Wednesday this week, we had National Sorry Day, which is to commemorate the national apology from 2008 that was given by the Australian Parliament, spearheaded by Kevin Rudd, who was the Prime Minister at the time, and this was to apologise for the mistreatment of Indigenous people, especially as part of Australian policy during the White Australia policy, and during the era of forced they took children from their families and had forced adoptions to put them into other families. So with a policy that essentially, in a way, was to breed Indigenous people out of Australia. So, and there's a whole history about that people can look into about that. But it is part of our history. And so the national apology was a step in making amends. We're not quite there in terms of full reconciliation yet, but it was there to make amends for some of the terrible things that Indigenous people went through. So there's an article that I'm going to have linked in the show notes. It's called Reconciliation, More Than Just a Word. It's written by Andrew Hamilton, who is a Jesuit, and he's the editor of Eureka Street, which is a magazine that is published, I'm pretty sure, just here in Victoria, that goes through all kinds of different social justice issues from a Catholic point of view. So just a couple of brief things, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion about it. In the article, he starts by saying that May the 26th marks National Sorry Day in Australia, which is followed by National Reconciliation Week, which is from the 27th of May to the 3rd of June. Reconciliation is a journey for all Australians, as individuals, families, communities, organisations, and importantly, as a nation. So he's going on to say that this year marks the 20th anniversary of the Reconciliation in Australia mission to try and find a right and just place for Indigenous Australians in our society. He says it occurs at a time of distress for Indigenous Australians because there has been a high number who have died in custody. Now, Caroline and we did an episode on this last year talking about deaths in custody. And while people pointed out that that Indigenous people dying in custody is not the highest proportion of group represented in deaths in custody, it is still very high. And the number of Indigenous people incarcerated in parts of Australia is also disproportionately high as well. So there is an issue there that hasn't been addressed, because we find that there are Indigenous people that are finding themselves on the wrong side of the law, but in a very disproportionate kind of number. So we're also thinking here that this time marks the growing number of ways in which Indigenous Australians have come to recognise the unique place of Indigenous people in our Australian story, and the further distance we must go before there is to be full reconciliation. So the article basically goes on to say that words are great, but words are not enough if they're not backed up by action. So we can all commit to reconciliation. We can all say, yes, I want reconciliation. But if the actions aren't there, if in some way, shape or form we aren't doing things to promote reconciliation, then is it really going to happen? So every year, the Australian government releases a report about how Australia is going with meeting its goals of bringing parity between Australians, so non-Indigenous Australians, and Indigenous Australians. So it's called Closing the Gap. Now, the Closing the Gap report from memory has been delayed this year until later because of COVID. But basically, the report will tell us if people are, if society, I should say, is meeting its obligations. So are Australians, so for example, how many Indigenous Australians are finishing year 12 and moving on to university? What about deaths in childbirth? So mortality in childbirth rates and things like that. So there's all of these different things that are reported on in terms of how much we've closed the gap. What about mortality rates? In the average rate or lifespan, I should say, of an Indigenous person in Australia is somewhere in the 60s, whereas everyone else it can be 70s, 80s, 90s. So there are all of these issues that still have not been addressed that are part of reconciliation. So, guys, I've rambled on for quite a bit about this, and there's a lot more in the article. The article does go on to talk about disproportionate ill health, unequal incarceration, limited access to educational opportunities, and so on. So, Caroline, first of all, in terms of Reconciliation Week, what do you think we as Australians could do better? Where do you think we are? What's your sense of more equality, I guess, between Indigenous Australians and non-Indigenous Australians?
Well, I mean, how do I say? I mean, we still don't have a large community, unfortunately, of Indigenous people, so I don't know if they're always in the forefront every day in our lives, which is an unfortunate thing. It would be good to have more communication with them, or that's not the right word, but like if we could, how do you say? I've just lost my words, but if we could have more contact, more sharing of stories, more sharing of experiences, more sharing of culture, that kind of thing would be so lovely. Even just simple things like, if you see it come up on your Facebook feed, share it so everybody knows that this is coming up, and just share the love and help them to spread the word, for their cause, and just love them like everybody else. They're a precious community. The population is nowhere near as large as, all the other cultures in this country. And I think that really, I'd love to see that change. I'd love to see them embraced more. Unfortunately, there is a lot of racism still that exists in the community towards them, which I find quite sad. We're all equal. Doesn't matter where you come from, what you look like, whatever. We're all humans. And we need to embrace and love each other. And I think that's really what we need to get to, So, yeah, I'd love to see more interaction and, even our local councils could probably help out doing this kind of work. I think there's a hub in Dandenong or something or other, but I only read a glimpse of it, and I don't even know how we'd get involved. There's not really much outreach, or there's not much encouragement of, involvement, getting to know the Indigenous people. So I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done in that regard as well, because it's just so easy to go, oh yeah, they have, people have such attitudes because, oh look, they're in jail, they're drinking young, they're drinking, they're doing drugs, they do this, they do that. But that's not fair, because, the social situation hasn't been on their side. They haven't had the help that they need. So they're not falling into alcoholism or crime or whatever. And, you hear on the news all the time of unfair, when people have been jailed unfairly or treated unfairly by authorities. And I think perhaps their attitude needs to change a little bit as well. Maybe how they deal with people. Maybe they treat them the same as everyone else. I heard sadly about a death in custody of a mother. She was drunk and they put her in jail and she died there. Her children were heartbroken. I mean, that's unfair. Why do you have to and there was a white woman who the same thing happened. She was drunk and she was driven home. Like, why could you not have driven the Aboriginal woman home? Why did you have to put her in jail and let her die? That's atrocious. That's just disgusting treatment. So,
yeah, and that's, I guess, an anecdote that tells us about the gap.
Yeah.
That this is the gap that we're talking about, isn't it?
This happened this year, a few months ago.
Happened this year, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and every death in custody is painful for the Indigenous community. And I don't know if I mentioned it last year. I may have on one of our episodes, but we watched a documentary at school with all of our students called "In My Blood It Runs," and it was about an Indigenous boy who, living in the Northern Territory, I think from memory, and essentially the family, his whole family, were worried that he was going to go to prison, and this was a young child. That he was going to, they are worried about police picking them up off the streets and taking them to prison. Youth juvenile detention, all these kinds of things. And it's just it's a way of life, and that tells you something about it not being right either.
That's right.
And what's interesting.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say, obviously...
Yeah, go.
You go, that's okay.
Oh, no, just the last sentence. But what's interesting is that when he and his family were, when they would leave town and they were allowed to go and live in the bush and participate in their culture and just be Indigenous people without having to worry about social security, housing, all these things that that we're obsessed with sometimes. There was no problem. There were no social issues. I think sometimes, and I'm only going through just my anecdotal observation of things that I see, but I think sometimes maybe we have to let Indigenous people be Indigenous people, not force them to live by the culture that we have of, the economics and this and that, all these kinds of things. Allow Indigenous people to participate in society where they want to participate. Give them places to be themselves. It seems almost like the way that they talk, from what I've seen in documentaries and what I've seen from people talking, it's almost like they're being suffocated in a sense because they're not allowed to freely express and experience their own culture. Like, land is their identity, it's who they are, but we don't get that. We think of land as it's property, it's mine, it's got value, but the value for them isn't necessarily monetary. It's actually identity, it's who they are. We have, so you go now, Caroline, I'll be quiet.
No, I was going to say, I just wanted to add to what you were saying. I mean, apart from not having the support for them to be who they are, and also, forcing them to live the way they do, and then expecting them to not have social problems, right? Like you were saying, the identity to land, where mining companies can just go and blow up ancient sites where their culture have been for tens of thousands of years or even longer. We don't know.
To know what that feels like, just people listening, imagine your favorite landmark in your city being blown up, or imagine your parish church being blown up by a mining company, or or the Vatican,
Yeah, or for us, like the temples in Malta, the ancient rock,
yes,
like they're similar to Stonehenge. Imagine if they were just knocked down. I mean, I would be hurt, and I can't imagine the pain they feel when people just disregard them and just go ahead and just blow up something. Like, literally, you can't do a worse thing, blowing it up with TNT, like, really. And I can't imagine the pain they would feel. How disrespected are they? How disregarded are they? So I can't blame them for wanting to have this kind of these days and these short weeks for us to remember and help celebrate them.
To bring awareness, isn't it?
That's
I might just in reference to what you were saying, Carolina, I'll find some articles about what you're referring to with Indigenous sites being destroyed, because this is something that's quite distressing as well. Let's look at some of the positive. So that it did talk about organisation structures doing more. So, Lino, you're out of the three of us, you're more engaged in Australian rules football than anyone else. So there is it once a year, and I think it's coming up soon, Dreamtime at the G. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
So Dreamtime at the G, I can't remember what round it is. What round are we up to now? I can't remember now.
Who knows?
I can't remember now.
You're asking the wrong people.
Yeah, sorry. And then, that's right, Essendon play West Coast this weekend, so it's the round after that. And during that round, it's called the Indigenous round. The Sir Nicholas... I apologise for the Aboriginal community. I can't remember his last name. But It's so it's basically between Essendon and Richmond, and yeah, they play at the G, and it's called Dreamtime at the G. So what Dreamtime usually means is the Aboriginals' view of the creation of Earth.
Did someone call in to correct you?
Yeah, probably did. Yeah,
You're taking calls live. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say. So it was like,
Lino, it's the MCG, not the G. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, MCG.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's their story time of creation of Earth. Sorry guys, I'm trying to find my. Where is it? I've lost it. Oh, here we go. Yeah, my little tab about the Dreamtime. So the Dreamtime is a commonly used term for describing important features of Aboriginal spiritual beliefs and existence. It is not generally well understood by non-Indigenous people like us, in sense. So Aboriginals believe that the Dreamtime was way back at the very beginning. The land and the people were created by the spirits. They made the rivers, streams, waterholes, land, hills, rocks, plants, and animals. It is believed that the spirits gave them their hunting tools and each tribe its land, their totems, and their dreaming. The Aboriginals believe that the entire world was made by their ancestors way back in the very beginning of time, the dream time. So the ancestors made everything. So I read about this and it was awesome. It was great. I thought about faith as well, in the beginning of time, and it was I was like, wow, I didn't really know about this part of the Dreamtime. I knew there was that the Aboriginals will tell us their stories of the creation of Earth, but this way it's like it just has opened my mind. Sadly with everyone, Dreamtime was always about footy and it almost took over it, and I think that was the debate, guys. Okay, I think that was a debate. Is like we need to go step back and think about the Dreamtime as it should be, not always about the footy. I'm not going to get too much involved into the other things that Essendon's into, because I think we Essendons do the Anzac Day. I think we do the Dreamtime at the G. I think I'm not sure if we do another one. I can't remember what the other thing we do. But it really opened my mind about this, and I want to read this article later on and learn more about the Dreamtime and especially about our Aboriginal people. And like we were saying before, we need to understand them more, and with that, know them more. They were our first people here. So yeah, it's a great time for everyone to come to the G and to experience their stories and their culture. At the start of the game, they do an act or a performance in one of their stories of the creation of Earth. And it's pretty good because it's great because it's in the dark time, so all the lights are out and everything's all very. It's when you go there physically, guys. It's very awesome. And the TV is awesome too. Yeah. It's like everywhere. If you go to a concert, it's great to watch it from TV, but when you're there, you feel the experience. All your senses just come together. You hear it. Well, I'm going to say you smell it, but you just experience it, and it's so awesome. Especially the didgeridoo, when that plays, when it's totally silent, it's just a didgeridoo.
It's got an amazing sound when it's on its own in a very vast silent space, isn't it? It's an amazing instrument. Yeah,
sound.
Yes,
and then it's great that all the clubs of all the AFL clubs, every club has their own Aboriginal art on their jerseys.
Yep. Yes, yeah.
And every year it's different, but it tells the story of the Dreamtime on their tops. And sometimes I think one year they had all the Aboriginal players' names on their jerseys.
Amazing.
And they combined it into this art, and it's so awesome. And I think from mine, I think they do sell the jerseys on auction, and then the money goes towards the Aboriginal communities.
That's great.
So that's a great thing. Yeah.
I love seeing sporting organizations do things like that. That's where so, sometimes with it's just sport. It's not important. It's not a real job. People say all those kinds of things, but actually sport can have the power to make some really important social changes and to really raise awareness, doesn't it?
It does.
I think it's beautiful that Dreamtime at the G is a real thing. I'll see later if I can find a video on YouTube, and I'll put a link in the show notes for people to see what we're talking about. I've seen, I remember Mass at World Youth Day in 2008 here in Australia, in Sydney, in the state next door. We had Indigenous people with didgeridoos starting masses, which was amazing. So it's a celebration of Indigenous culture. There are many Indigenous Catholics who do Indigenous arts, and they so it's dot paintings, but with Catholic symbolism, which is beautiful. And they'll do stories of creation with the Holy Spirit, with the rainbow serpent, which is an understanding. These stories are part of it's part of the fiber of who they are. It's not just some people might go, oh, it's pagan beliefs, but that is a really terrible understatement of what these stories mean to people. It's not it's insufficient to understand it that way, to just brush it aside. But Indigenous Catholics actually hold a lot of this as part of who they are. These stories, it's their identity. They're not just it's not just about whether it's a belief or not. This is a part of who they are. So I think it's worth noting that. But I think what the two of you have said really is just about awareness. It's about knowing. It's like knowing their history, knowing their stories. I've said before that I think New Zealand did a great job with the way that they've integrated their Indigenous peoples into society. People use the words every day when they greet each other and things like that.
Nice.
That's the dream for me. Can Australia get, can Australia make it to that point? I think that's what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right. So we've got a few resources for our Reconciliation Week there. So we'd like to share those with you in the show notes. So please find some time to take a look. But let's move on very quickly to another Faith Beyond Borders topic. Now, we won't talk about this a lot because I won't say what's happening soon, but we do want to talk to someone who is going to be on the show soon about this, and who will be able to inform us a lot more and give us a lot more detail. But I'll give you the brief outline of it. So for the Feast of Pentecost, this was published on the 23rd of May, so that's a week ago for us. Archbishop Comensoli released a pastoral letter. And it was called, I forgot where the title of it is because I can't see it here. That's all right. But anyway, it's basically about how we live out the gospel in the Archdiocese of Melbourne. So I'm just going to give the really brief outline of this pastoral letter, but I'll put a link to the show in the show notes so anyone who wants to read it can. But basically, he is talking about starting a conversation, or the conversation started now, about understanding the mission of the Archdiocese of Melbourne and its people in the years ahead. So what is the Catholic Church in Melbourne going to look like, and how is it going to be able to carry out its mission? So he mentions the following. He said he's had 2 meetings in the past month. One is with all of the clergy of the Archdiocese. He had all the priests and I'm assuming deacons, and he presented to them. And then he had a representative from all of the 209 parishes as well last weekend, because I went to it, so I know about it too.
Hey, did you get free parking, Linz? No.
The parking was free. It's all right. There was no special parking, just normal parking.
Oh, get a free food too? No. Oh,
yeah, we got lunch, which was good.
Oh my goodness!
These are the main things.
That is the
most important things. Yeah.
I don't go there for the free lunch, but man, it's a bonus. I'll tell you what. Yeah. So very grateful for the Archdiocese of Melbourne for feeding us as well, because yeah. The last thing you want is a bunch of hangry people at a place where you're presenting to them.
So.
That is true.
Yeah. Anyway, so
have them tired and digesting.
So he presented the following, and this is also in the letter as well. He said there are 3 things to think about. He said to open up the question of how our local church in Melbourne might be best organised in the future, such that 1, the mission of the gospel is at the heart of life, worship, and outreach. 2, local faith communities are arranged to allow for them to flourish. And 3, our faith communities be effectively resourced spiritually, ministerially, and materially. So essentially what he's doing, what the Archdiocese is doing, I should say, is it's asking itself, how are we going to do mission from here? He said at the meeting, we've got choices now as a church. We can do what we're doing now and stay as we are, and the church can basically fade with the sunset. It can disappear into the sunset. Or we can reframe the church, reorganize the church spiritually, resource-wise and so on, so that it will continue, but not just continue, but it will actually be active in fulfilling its mission, which is to spread the good news of Christ. So he said there are 3 questions to describe the task that he's putting ahead of us. Where might be the local missions of our Archdiocese today? Which parishes might organically fit together to form a family of communities? And how might we better resource these missions spiritually, ministerially, and materially? So essentially what the plan is that's been outlined to the lay leaders at this meeting is that this isn't about amalgamating parishes or parish closures or addressing a shortage of priests. So those are the wrong things to be thinking about when it comes to what's happening, what's being planned for the future. What they are planning is the idea of going back to how James Gould was setting up the early churches in Melbourne as groups. So the parishes were basically grouped together in what are called missions, and they worked together to spread the gospel. They worked together to teach within their own mission, the people within their own mission. So if you've got 3, 4, 5 parishes grouped together, you're talking about 20,000 people-ish, roughly, right? So you've got a mission to work with, because not all of those people are practicing Catholics. They may have been baptized, but they may have been disconnected. Maybe 1,000 or 2,000 of them go to Mass on a Sunday within those 5 parish groups. So what they're essentially doing is saying, how do we group parishes together so that they are firstly resourced to be able to spread the good news, that they have the personnel, so the catechists, the teachers, the clergy, the whatever else it might be that's needed to be able to spread the good news, but also to provide support and accompaniment. So there is already one group of parishes in Melbourne that not only do they do this mission work of teaching their own people and doing sacraments and whatever, but they've got 2 nursing homes as well that they're also taking care of as well. So when we think mission, it's a very broad kind of thing. Now, was it nursing homes or was it refugee centers? I forgot. It's one or the other. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's about equipping the church of the future to be able to carry out mission. So, yeah, so I'm actually enthusiastic about this idea. I'm all for, as Pope John the 23rd said, reading the signs of the times and reframing the church in this era to be ready for its mission. It will be difficult for some Catholics. It was difficult for some of the people at the table I sat at, that they were finding it initially very difficult to get on board, because change is always very, very difficult. But I actually personally think this is a change that we need to see as a young-ish Catholic. All right, so I'm barely hanging on to his 30s. And as a Catholic with children as well, I want there to be a church for my children. I want there to be a church for me, but I also want there to be a church for people who have no experience of church as well. I'd like them to be aware that this is a possibility, that there's a community that they can join that has Christ, it has people, it has accompaniment, it has the sacraments, it has whatever they need. And so I'm very much in favor of this, and we'll be hopefully asking our guests some more questions about this in the near future. So I've thrown a lot at you guys, but initially, what are your thoughts on setting up the church in this sort of mission format where we group parishes together to do mission together? Caroline, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's probably a great idea. I mean, and the other thing, if you're grouping several parishes together, is that you're getting different viewpoints and different ideas on how to do things, and you can pull your ideas together and come up with, because every parish will have their certain culture, just yes. Naturally how it is. So, yeah. You can, with everybody sharing ideas, I think it's good to move forward. In maybe uncomfortable directions. It's easy to just sit down and go, yeah, I go to church every Sunday. I'm a good Catholic. I go to church every Sunday. True, but, we kind of do have to push ourselves if we want, to change and grow the way we need to for the future. To just be a bit uncomfortable and do something uncomfortable every day to show you love Jesus, and yeah, and I guess on a personal level, you can be a bit uncomfortable, if the opportunity arises, you can say, yeah, I'm a Catholic, you can out yourself. I'm a Catholic, I believe in God, there's no shame in that. And then, you don't know what comes of that, or you can do a podcast, whatever you can do in a small way apart from, having, mission churches. I think doing things in a small way helps as well, as being part of a parish. So there you go.
Yeah. I wonder sometimes if there is a bit of I don't want to throw this on every Catholic, but if there is a bit of complacency when it comes to faith, because I go to Mass on Sunday, I give my weekly offering, I'm good, it's fine. Yeah.
That's all I need to do to be Catholic. Like, no, we're actually called to do more,
Yeah, our baptism kind of says that you're made for mission. It kind of commissions you to do, and your confirmation commissions you to do a lot more than simply sit there and turn up and receive sacraments and make a move.
Your job's half done when you become Catholic. There's the other half then to kind of spread the joy to other people so they can experience the same thing as we do.
Yeah, and witness is difficult. It's challenging. It's a bit awkward, but it's something that for all of us to work on. Lino, what are your thoughts on setting up parishes as mission to be able to do God's work?
Yeah, so I believe this is a great idea. Just thinking how they're going to work it, maybe how many parishes in the southeast, east side, are they going to do that way? And I believe there'll be a lot of parishes in different areas, and like Carolina was saying, that each one of them have their sort of different cultures. Of course, Holy Family. The majority of us is mostly the Indian community, but other cultures are there. I think for St. Mary's, I'm not 100% sure, but there's a certain culture there that has a lot more people there as well. And St. Kevin's, I think they're a bit more mixed, I believe. I haven't been there for a while, but I know they have that. And like you were saying, that each one of them can bring their own ideas and discuss about them, and to work around with that and make the mission work, and it's great. It's great. It's not like it's always just Holy Family, just do it. St. Mary's, just do what you want to do. If we can combine our knowledge and our ideas together, I believe this will work. And like you said, it will take time. You guys, it will take time. I can only believe, and I'm just being realistic here. I'm not being negative, but there'll be a lot of arguments, a lot of discussions, like that. But in the end, we're doing this for God, and we're doing a mission to spread out our Catholic faith, and make it stronger. I don't know if our Catholic faith is strong, but it's not as strong as it used to be here in Australia. And I think we need to make it stronger. And I believe that Archbishop Peter Comensoli has a great idea for this. It's like I'm just being silly here. It's like the Transformers. One entity in the middle. We need all of us all to get together and work together, and make this happen. So it's
like Voltron.
Yeah. Voltron as well. Yeah.
I'll form the herd. Yes, Voltron. Oh gosh,
exactly.
Yes. And just two things from what you guys have said as well. One is the Archbishop was clear in his letter that this is not going to be an overnight process. And in fact, he went on to say that identifying which parishes might organically fit together will take months, will take time. The actual implementation, a lot of this could take up to 5 or 6 years. So he was very clear at the lay leaders meeting that this is not something that's happening tomorrow. This is something that needs time to unfold naturally. It's not about forcing people together, but it's about finding the right fit. Because you've got to look at the resources, both financially and personnel wise, physical resources. You've got to look at all those things. And while it's not just about the buildings, they help. It helps to have the backing of those things. The other thing I was going to mention as well is that actually, no, I forgot what I was going to mention. So we'll just move on from that. It doesn't matter. I think that was the point about time. But these are important things, I guess. Like you have both said now, it's like the church of the future or of tomorrow or even of today. How are we going to carry out our mission now? So one last little thing for Faith Beyond Borders. This has been a bit of a long segment, so Carolyn, we'll get to science in a moment.
That's fine. That's long too, I think.
But the last thing is Facebook sent me a notification, which I shared with the two of you, about a new type of like button that they're experimenting with that I hope actually becomes a thing. So they're testing, you've got the heart, you've got the angry one, you've got the thumbs up, you've got the shock, is it the surprise? Yeah. And the hug, you got the hugs.
I like the hugs one.
Yeah, they are now testing a prayer button. So it's two hands together in prayer. Not that anyone who's listening to the podcast saw what I just did but you know what prayer looks like. Yeah. But it's like saying, I'm praying for you. So I think that's not a bad idea. I actually use that emoji, which it's Apple calls it thanks, I think, but it looks like prayer. So
you can't say prayer.
When I'm saying I'm praying for you, I'll send that as to someone, or sometimes I'll use it as prayer on Facebook posts and other things like that as well. But Caroline, very quickly, prayer, thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you think?
Thumbs up to the prayer.
Yeah. So that gets a like from Caroline. Lino, what do you think?
Gets a like. Gets a hug from me.
Gets a hug? All right. Awesome. So let's move on then. And Caroline, we're going to throw it over to you because we have quite a few things to talk about as we talk about science.
What a fine day for science.
You have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Can you reverse the polarity?
I'll do my best.
Science, 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 science. Science, 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 science. Yeah, I like science.
So, Caroline, there are two types of COVID treatments that are in development right here in Australia. Over to you. Tell us all about them.
Yeah, so I guess this is kind of like some good COVID news. It's easy to talk about the doom and gloom of it, but there is a bit of hope with new treatments being developed. So we have our vaccines on the way to pretty much being well developed and being handed out all over the place, lots of different types of vaccines. But now some Australian scientists have two groups of researchers. I'm going to talk to you quickly about two different types of treatments. We've got scientists here in Queensland there's two groups, there's two different types of treatment for COVID. I'll just go through. The first one is scientists from QMIR Berghofer Medical Research Institute of Queensland have developed two types of drugs for the treatment of COVID-19. One is to prevent infection from the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and the other is to treat people who've already been infected and to prevent severe disease happening. The findings were published in the Journal of Nature Cell Discovery on May 24th, 2021. So this is very recent. In the journal, they mentioned that even though there are some drugs available to treat severe COVID-19 disease, such as remdesivir and other corticosteroids, there's still a high morbidity and mortality even when these kinds of drugs are used. Also, asymptomatic people are able to shed the virus over an extended duration, and they may be going around spreading the disease. Mass vaccinations take time and not everyone will respond well to the vaccine, or even some people don't want to take the vaccine for various reasons. So they're developing a therapeutic treatment which uses the mechanisms of infection by the virus in the cell as an additional tool to go along with vaccinations to help fight the virus and to prevent the spread in populations. The SARS-CoV-2 virus, okay, so we're getting into the biochemistry a little bit here.
It's all yours.
It uses an ACE2 cellular receptor, so it's a little protein that sits inside the cell membrane, and it's expressed or found in the cell membrane of the lung, the kidney, and gastrointestinal tract cells. And we know that with, bad COVID disease that you can be affected not just in the lungs but in all of these organs as well. So the ACE2 receptor protein has become the target of their research and the target of this therapy because it binds to the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, and that's how it lets the virus into the cell and let it replicate and go on to cause disease. So it's kind of a lock and key mechanism. SARS-CoV-2 virus comes along to this receptor and they the virus then unlocks the cell and it enters. One of the researchers, Professor Sudha Rao, said that they were able to develop the drugs after discovering that some people have a chemical tag which acts like a padlock to the ACE2 receptor. She says the tag can either keep the receptor locked or open, control infection. This means people who have the padlock-like tag on their ACE2 receptors will be less susceptible to SARS-CoV-2, and those without the tag are more vulnerable to the infection. Our drugs stop the tag being removed and also protect the untagged ACE2 receptors from being infected. So I had a little read of their paper, and I just got out some of the very basic biochemistry of it, but and I just to explain how
is there such thing as basic biochemistry?
No. So it took me quite a bit to decipher. Lucky I have a little bit of a background, but it was very interesting. Their therapy uses a peptide. Do you want to know what a peptide is? So it's a short a short chain of amino acids between 2 and 50 amino acids linked together by peptide bonds. And then these peptides can go on to make proteins and long chains, and proteins are basically just long chains of amino acids. So I think everyone's probably familiar with the idea of a protein, but a peptide is just a very, very short chain of these amino acids. So for the SARS-CoV-2 virus to enter the cell, they found that there's the ACE2 protein, and then it's got a little protein next to it called LSD1, which is, they're calling it an epigenetic eraser enzyme. Now, when we're talking about epigenetics, we're talking about factors that will influence gene expression. So you can be exposed to something in the environment and it will cause the genes to be expressed or not expressed, something like that. So basically, binding of the virus, when we're talking about the binding of the COVID-2 virus, what LSD1 does, it causes the demethylation of ACE2. So what that does, picture the ACE2 protein sitting in the cell membrane. The LSD1 takes a methyl group off. Now, methyl group is a very tiny molecule that's attached to the protein. But when the methyl group or molecule is removed, the SARS-CoV-2 virus then is able to bind to the ACE2 protein. And the idea with the drugs is that this peptide will inhibit the function of the LSD1 protein, and it will reduce entry of the virus into your cell. So the peptide drug actually binds to the ACE2 protein, and they have the second drug that they've made works in the same way, but it works inside the cell. So one will work on the outside, one will work on the inside. And so they're saying one drug will act like a cloak around the cell and prevent the virus entering into a cell and by binding to the receptor. And the second drug prevents the virus replicating if it does get into the cell. And the first drug, by binding, it kind of cloaks the cell. So you get SARS-CoV-2 kind of going through the bloodstream looking for cells to bind to, but there'll be the peptide already bound to the cell and it can't see the receptors. So it's kind of hiding the cells that may express these receptors. So I thought that's really quite interesting thinking and interesting discovery to make. It's quite detailed and, a very cool, just another way of thinking of how Lino's making a very confused face.
You heard his brain.
No, sorry, Caroline, when you said peptides, I think way back, Essendon saga. What was peptides again?
Oh, of course, the drug scandal.
It's a little group of amino acids. They would be using it to build up their muscles like proteins, Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So we're talking about a very, very small chain here, and it just.
I was about to say.
Yeah. It's not anything to do with you're allowed to take it. It's even sports people will be allowed to take this one, and it will help to prevent a person getting the disease, and it will also help. So if your cells are infected, it will stop the disease. Will stop replication of the virus once it's in the cell.
Awesome.
So the research is conducted on COVID-19 patient blood and on human cells. And these COVID-19 patients were, people who've had the disease and, different variants of the disease and so on. And there's been testing done on hamsters And the peptides.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
It's okay. And then the peptide drugs are being used at the preclinical and clinical research at IDMIT in France with promising results, which is great. They found that the drug is non-toxic. It doesn't have side effects. It can be stored at room temperature, which is great because there's no issue with having to store at very cold temperatures or anything like that. And the next step now is to start clinical trials, and they're hoping to do that as soon as possible and hopefully to have this therapeutic drug available mid-next year in 2022. You know, you can imagine having such a treatment around, you know, if say there's an outbreak like here in Melbourne, and there are people who need to be protected but they haven't been vaccinated, you can give them this drug and they'll be protected from the virus.
Awesome.
So I'll explain. There's one more which is really cool as well. Some Queensland researchers from Menzies Health Institute in Queensland at Griffith University, in conjunction with some researchers from the US, Research Institute, the City of Hope, they began research last April, and they've kind of designed a seek and destroy mission through their drugs. This is the kind of thing for patients who are already unwell with COVID-19, and they've developed a gene silencing RNA technology. So what happens is this attacks the virus genome directly. So this one goes straight for the DNA, like there's no chance.
Oh, wow.
It just stops the virus dead in its track. It cannot spread. So what they're doing is using nanoparticles that seeks out the virus within the lung cells through the bloodstream, and it goes and attacks the virus. Other body parts aren't harmed or affected with this technology. It's pretty much like they said, seek and destroy.
Seek and destroy, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Professor Macmillan, one of the researchers, explains that it's not a cure, but it's a therapy that can reduce the amount of virus in the lung by 99.9%, which is excellent.
Wow.
Amazing.
And they've designed this one for people who are, say, in ICU really suffering, where vaccination is too late. So it can actually help people to stop dying if they've been treated soon enough. The virus can be destroyed in the body, and then the body can start to heal itself, and then, you know, the person can recover. The great thing about this one is it works on all variants of the virus, as well as SARS and MERS, which belongs to the two beta coronaviruses that the SARS-CoV-2 virus belongs to. We talked about it probably quite a few episodes ago now.
A while ago, yes. Yeah.
Because it attacks specific region of the genome. So, it's such a great development. You can save a lot of people's lives with this. It's stable at 4 degrees, and it can be stored for 12 months at 4 degrees. So this is also another treatment that goes along, you know, with vaccines as well. So, and they mentioned too, say, for example, you're in hotel quarantine and there are people infected, you can also take this. And if you've started to become infected, you can also get rid of the virus in your body. So for me, this is exciting, good news. You know, we are making progress on the way to knocking this virus on the head. Hopefully they can get it out really soon and out to countries who are really suffering from the disease.
I was thinking, like India at the moment.
That's
those
right.
poor people that this would be a miracle for a country like India and some others that are struggling right now.
There are many countries who are really suffering with this. Yeah, no, this is very exciting, and I was really happy to be able to bring such good news. I know that there are other kinds of therapies being developed all around the world, but since these are being developed here in Australia, I wanted to highlight them. Really good.
Yeah. Can I throw a couple of questions your way? They're simple questions, don't worry. So, so the first one, which protects a person's cell from being recognized by the virus. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yes, yes.
But would that be in lieu of a vaccine, or would you need a vaccine as well? So could you take one or the other, or? No,
you would. It's probably best to be vaccinated, because then you would have to keep kind of taking the therapy. The therapy is there as another form of something to protect you. If you're going into an environment where you know the SARS-CoV-2 around, you can have this and you will be protected, while you're taking the therapy. So, and the other one, you would say the one, if person is in ICU, they would need to take an injection once for every day for 5 days. So I think they're still working out how exactly to use them as well. But the best protection is to be vaccinated, because your body will recognize the virus in your body and it will attack it, and the immune response will be triggered, and your body will fight it off. But this is another protection on top of that, something to use with it.
Yeah, and the second therapy you mentioned, clearly but if you weren't vaccinated and you got ill, like you said, in hotel quarantine or something, it would seek and destroy, was it 99% of the virus?
99.9%. So it would get rid of the virus in your body. Yeah, whether you've got a lot of it or a little. So it's great. Yeah.
And so the other question I wanted to ask, so you talked about the duration of that first therapy. So it's not one that you could just take and you're protected forever. But the other thing I was going to ask was, how is it administered? Are we talking about a pill, or it's about an IV, intravenous?
Actually, I didn't see.
Has that been?
They're still running clinical trials on that one, but a peptide, I guess you would have to ingest. I mean, well, not necessarily, because you could be given it as an injection as well. I didn't get to see exactly how they're going to administer that one, but at least I just thought the functioning of the actual peptide was really interesting with that one.
So you guys, I was thinking, well, what about when the time comes, probably sadly very long ago, hoping not too long, is where you go overseas. So we get with vaccinations. How long will that vaccination last for? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's say you get vaccinated today, and then you're planning to go overseas in about, 3 or 4 months. Is that vaccination still inside you, Caroline? And you don't have to take it off? Yeah.
So from when I was doing the research on these vaccinations, as far as I know, they last, this is still very early, and actually we're not really 100% sure. They know that definitely you have to have a booster shot every year. So it's going to become like the flu shot where you need to take it every year. They were saying it can last about 6 months, but, I'm imagining that maybe it would last longer. I'm not sure. So you definitely need to have booster shots with this.
Gotcha.
I think you could probably go and do an antibody test to see the level of antibodies in your body and to see if you've got the right level of protection after being vaccinated. I think if you've got an antibody load after having the disease, that does go down over time. So, but the vaccination, it lasts longer than that. So, yeah.
It's like, when you want to go overseas, you get the hepatitis A shot, right?
Yeah.
B shot now, and now you have to take a vaccination shot to protect yourself when you go overseas.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand. Yeah, it's just going to be interesting when you want to go overseas. Then you have to time it. In a sense, I get a shot there.
I would. I'd definitely make sure I'm up to date with my COVID-19 and whatever else you have to take. It's very wise to
Depending
do
on
that.
where you go. Yeah,
That's right.
there's recommendations. So if you go to your GP and say, hey, I'm going to this country, they'll say, well, we recommend that you are vaccinated for this, this, and this. Yeah, that's right.
When I went to Thailand, I had to get vaccinated with something. Even when I went to Peru for quite a while ago now, but I think there was a yellow fever vaccination that they recommended to take as well. So, it can be region-specific, but I think COVID-19 now is kind of world-specific, Earth-specific. So it's best to be up to date with that,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, let's move from this planet, Caroline, to another heavenly body. So this week, guys, in Melbourne, we were very, very fortunate to not have a cloudy sky because we got to witness all of it in totality, a beautiful lunar eclipse. Now, it had a different kind of name, but Caroline, can you tell us what you saw this week?
Yeah, so there was the, excuse me, we did have a full lunar eclipse, the total lunar eclipse that happened, was it Thursday night? Wednesday night.
Yeah, Wednesday night. Yeah.
Yes, it started from I think the eclipse started about 8:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you to the moon and the planet Earth for doing it at a decent time and not 2 a.m. or something.
2 a.m. was really good in the morning.
Last time, I think a few years ago, there was an eclipse and it was like 2 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, I looked outside and went back to bed, but yes. But Lino, I don't know. Lino, you and I were talking about if it was going to be cloudy or not, because usually when we want to see something, always ends up cloudy.
Always cloudy.
But
it's a Melbourne rarity to have something happening in the night sky with no clouds, at a decent time that you could actually witness.
It wasn't windy. It was beautiful, crisp, clear night. So
it was just cold, but that you can handle.
It was cold, but I rugged up. I had my PJs on. I had a big coat. I had my nice Ugg boots on and a beanie, and so I was all ready. It started about 8:30 when the shadow started. It went till about 9:30 or so, but we had a total eclipse, and we could see the moon went really dark red, and awesome. It was a spectacular sight to see the Earth's shadow completely cover the moon. It was just amazing. I got my children out, I let them stay up late, and we watched it together. I took some photos, which actually turned out not too bad. I tried to get my telescope out, but unfortunately I bought a very heavy base and I couldn't get it out. So I have learnt next time to get my small one out, which I'm now going to put out there to be permanent, the same as my large telescope. And because it's still very good for viewing the moon. I'm kind of kicking myself, but that's okay. I'll be ready next time. And so I took some beautiful photos just with my camera. And it was amazing. Such a beautiful thing to see. I'm so glad we got to see it.
So that was the last time we had something?
To see it, Lino?
Oh, well, we had, I missed the other one. Was it a lunar eclipse? Or it was an eclipse of, was it Caroline, Saturn?
The conjunction.
That
was last year.
And I thought to myself, and I went, I've got to wait anher 60 years for this.
Well, good news.
Cloudy.
You only have to wait 5 years for the next one.
Exactly. For this one, I went, if I miss this, I'm going to wait 5 years. That's cool. Yeah, that's okay.
We'll have mission parishes set up by then as well, so you can,
so we can all watch it together.
We all can watch together.
But definitely, if this happens in the next 5 years, I definitely highly recommend going out and really experiencing, just stopping life for a while, going outside, being with nature, being with the natural occurrences of the sky, and it just makes you think, because the shadow, it goes over the moon and you just think, wow, Earth must be so much bigger than the moon to be able to fully eclipse it. And you just start, whenever you look at space, you look up at the night sky, you start pondering, and it just brings out that in you, and it's so peaceful and calming. So apart from just the scientific side, there's the human side. We can't help being connected to nature and God's creation. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
beautiful.
And one last bit of moon news. So I was every now and then I check out space.com, which has a great they just have great articles on things that are currently happening in around the world of space and space science. And they have an article which is all about the Japanese Space Agency, who I'm just falling in love. I just love.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Let me tell you why I love the Japanese Space Agency so much. They are. We talked about was it the Hayabusa probe?
Hayabusa 2,
yeah, Hayabusa 2, yeah, and the mini rovers and shooting asteroids with
dropping off a sample to Earth and moving on
and then
to the
keeping
next
going.
thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just love these compact, modular kind of designs that they do. So they're sending. They are going to be sending a lander to the moon next year, and it's called Hakuto R. And it's basically it's got all these different modules that people can attach cameras and sensors and all kinds of things to, which is amazing in itself. And in the link that I'll share, there's a great video showing how the landing system works. It's pretty much an advertising video, because then it's like, and it's got landing legs to minimize the shock and your devices will be powered by batteries with large solar panels and all that. I just love all this. It's great. Yeah. And it shows how it flies to the moon and the landing, whatever. However, what is really cool are two things. One is, and Lino, you and I were having a good laugh about this the other day, is the Toyota Land Rover Mars rover, which is so cool.
So
all right, so So Toyota is making basically a
space rover. It's a space rover.
Yeah, for humans to drive around in.
I was going to say Land Rover, but like I said to you guys, that's been taken.
Yeah, it has.
Taken. You can't do that.
However, I want to see 2 astronauts jumping in front of it, going, "Oh, what a feeling!" Toyota.
They don't have to jump so high, don't they?
Yeah, they just have a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. But the other really, really cool thing, and this is what really got my attention, is that next year they'll also send as part of that mission a baseball-sized rover, like a mini rover, to the moon. And it's basically a ball, and it does open up, and it's got some basic sensors to measure moon dust,
yes,
which apparently can be corrosive to certain things.
Quite sticky.
Yeah. So they want to measure it, analyze it, and things like that. But this thing, I just want everyone to imagine, like, it looks a bit like BB-8 in some kinds of ways.
Yes, it really does.
I just want to see this thing rolling around on the moon.
True,
and in fact, they need to paint it BB-8 colours.
They should.
Oh, wow.
It's a must.
Yeah, Disney and Star Wars isn't on that one, guys.
Yeah.
They'll be going with that one. Yep.
Yeah, and it's just a little transformable lunar robot. So it's
transformable. That is the word, guys.
It transforms, yeah. And that is so Japanese cartoon.
That
kind
is
of,
so Japanese cartoon.
I love it. I love it so much.
I love how they think outside the box.
Definitely.
It's amazing.
It's so smart. Yeah, so there are some great images of the concept of it. There are some things that are unknown about it, but there are some images on the website, the link that I'm going to share in our show notes, showing it in ball mode and then in transformed mode where it opens up and the instrument pops out. Yeah, so
love it.
Yeah, I really want to see live footage of this when it's doing its thing.
Yes.
I just want to see a little ball, like a little baseball rolling around on the surface of the moon.
I think the moon is going to be crowded very soon. Everybody's going there.
I was
it's
the
place
guys.
to be.
Yeah.
Lots of rovers, lots of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope it's not so busy as a Monash, but anyway, that's beside the point.
Oh, it may. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And the last thing I've got is just some really cheeky news about some moon landings. So we know that there's some rivalry between the different corporations that are trying to send things to the moon. So Blue Origin, who lost the bid for the human landing system to SpaceX, they said the following: the human landing system program needs competition, not the delay of starting over. The national team has an open architecture, deep experience, massive self-funded investments, and a safe, low-risk design to return to the moon. Let's go, Artemis. To which Elon Musk simply responded, for the low price of...
Exactly, that was so funny.
So he kind of trolled it. So he's making a comment on how a lot of these proposed systems are super expensive. We're talking billions of dollars. And the human landing system that Blue Origin, as cool as it is basically, it's disposable, it's not reusable, it's and very, very expensive. Whereas Starship is meant to actually be a very low cost option because it's reusable, because the technology is there, it's quite advanced, and also because it gives you the potential for a massive payload that you can take to the moon, not just a bunch of people and some small equipment. So that's the science one. Anything else we want to add, or I think we're good science wise?
Well, we could talk so much. So much has been happening, but we'll leave it there, I think. Hey.
We will bring you more science very soon.
It's hard to choose actually what to speak about every week. I really have to think of what stands out and then think, that's what I'm going to talk about.
There's so much to cover.
Very well.
Yeah. But everyone who's listening as well, please, we've had a few people send us topics and we'd like to look at those in the future. So if you would like to send us a science topic, please do, and Caroline will do all the homework anyway.
Leave it to me.
Caroline's got it. All right, so let's move on now, and briefly, because we are way over time today, let's talk about entertainment.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
This is not what we came here to do.
No, but it's what I'm going to do.
I have a plan. You've got a plan. I have part of a plan. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
So we like to talk about what we're watching, what we're reading, what we're listening to, things like that. I might start off today. So before I throw it to you guys. So what happened was somehow Damien and I, my 12-year-old Damien and I, we were having a chat about, pop culture things and whatever. And it led to me telling him about an episode of The Simpsons where where Mulder and Scully from the X-Files turn up to investigate Homer seeing an alien in the forest, who turns out to be Mr. Burns, who is glowing from his treatment or something.
So
and
funny.
I've come to spread peace and love. Yes, all that. Yeah. Anyway, so it's a very funny episode. And the reason I wanted to show it to Damien was firstly because of the X-Files connection, but also because there's that lineup where they have all these aliens lined up and they ask Homer if he's seen them. You've got like Chewbacca and Darth Vader, and, all this other, and Marvin the Martian. And when they're like, okay, guys, we're done. And Marvin the Martian walks up and he goes, "This makes me very angry."
Very good impersonation.
It's such a great line. I just love, it's so good. Anyway, so we watched that and Damien said, "Dad, can we watch the X-Files?" I said, we could. I said, but it's really old school now. I mean, there are some recent seasons, but the first season is very old school. Like, do you really want to watch it?
It can be a bit disturbing too, some episodes.
And some of them are, So I thought, all right, let's just watch the first one and see if you like it. And he loved it. He loved it so much that we're going through the first season and we got up to the last episode freaked him out a little bit. It was like the bad, there's the paranormal and there's the disturbing bad guys. There was the one about the bad guy who eats people's livers and then goes into hibernation. Like pretty freaky.
Yeah.
Wow. We watched one about a scientist a computer scientist who created an artificial intelligence which controlled a whole building and was trying to kill people to preserve itself and all. So there was that one. Very, very funny that the guy was able to create a virus and then you just insert a floppy disk into a 6-inch floppy disk into a drive and that kills the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was like, it's still a very interesting concept considering when this episode was made in the 90s. And the other thing, the last one we watched was there was an Arctic station. It was, in Alaska, I think it was. There's a like a station in the snow in a very like remote area.
Sounds
and
like
there was an
James Bond
alien
sort of thingy.
no, it was an alien parasite that was making people go crazy and attack each other, and then
that's beyond
Mulder
James
and Scully go with a team. And it's very it's very much like any other horror movie in a sense that you've seen, where there's a parasite and then suddenly everyone comes in, they're happy, and suddenly someone gets it goes crazy, and so anyway, it was interesting, but it's good because Damien and I have been having some interesting conversations around these episodes, and I do like I like the storytelling. I actually never watched The X-Files completely when it came out. I was too young when it first started anyway, and I'd seen episodes here and there and enjoyed it, but never really got into it from start to end. So I'm actually enjoying watching it from the beginning. Like, it is very old school.
There is a good underlying story that runs through.
There is, yeah. But like the techno cars they drive, the phones they use, the fax machines, and, all
fax
that.
Machine?
It's very old school. Shoulder pads, the whole lot. But I'm enjoying the throwback to the 90s as much as I'm enjoying the episodes and everything. So I'm really enjoying the X-Files, and I'm looking forward to watching more of it with Damien over time. So things do pop up from time to time, and I have to, all right, Damien, let's fair enough, let's talk about it. But he's old enough now, and as long as we're watching it together, it's okay. And the thing is, there are disturbing things that happen in our world, and there are bad people. And while some of this is more about the paranormal and the alien side of things or whatever, they do sometimes just come across really bad people. And I guess there's an ugly side of the world that we do need to be aware of. We can't pretend it doesn't exist. And I think the X-Files helps me to open up those conversations with Damien. He's old enough for a mature chat about these things. So unexpected things that the X-Files has given me in terms of parenting.
Awesome.
And also I get to enjoy it at the same time. I get to spend some quality time with him. So we're going to binge the X-Files. We're not really binging it. We're just watching one every now and then, but we're going through it. Lino, are you watching anything interesting at the moment?
That one is so interesting. Well, we're still watching Superstore, so that's been great. Actually, we're up to season 4 now.
All right, you're making some good progress through it.
Yeah, 5 seasons. it's a, like you say, guys. It's such an hilarious show, and no,
and the footy,
entertainment wise, no. being pretty shallow. Bender's been watching her usual stuff like Caroline has, MC. Some other stuff. What was the other one?
Lego Masters is finished,
That's
so
right,
it's MasterChef at the moment.
Yep,
that's correct, Caroline. Yeah, we watched MasterChef, Lego Masters. There was another one in between that. I can't
Not
remember.
Big Brother, please don't.
No.
There's the.
Yeah.
I didn't indulge in Big Brother this year. I have to tell you.
No, I thought you would. No.
Okay.
Indulge. It's more like subject yourself to.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Lindsay.
Mainly because Lego Masters was on, and same with MasterChef. There's no time for another one.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. And also reruns of Friends.
There you go.
Reunion.
I can't go back there. I'm sorry.
No,
yeah, I can't rewatch it either, but
you can't watch Friends.
One round was enough. Yeah.
Okay.
I remember enjoying it in high school, but I couldn't. I couldn't go back either. But I remember enjoying it in high school. But
they were. It was great. But,
it was funny at the time. Yeah. Caroline, what about you? Anything that you're watching at the moment or listening to?
Well, Frankie was unwell as well a couple of weeks. This is how I got sick, obviously.
Usually from the kids, isn't it?
Yeah. Then, he'd been into the SpongeBob SquarePants. Then I thought, let's try something else. And I noticed Monkey was on. We're watching a bit of Monkey Magic.
Monkey Magic, yes. Is this the reboot of Monkey Magic?
This is the old version, the original. So we started from the
Yeah.
beginning because I remember, catching a few episodes. So that was fun, and he thought it was funny. And while I was unwell too, I thought and it's kind of inspired by you telling me to download The Hobbit on Audible. So,
yes, which is great. Oh my gosh, Andy Serkis is reading of it.
Fantastic. Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
So apart from listening to that as well, I started rewatching. So I started watching The Hobbit, and I've made made my way down to now we're at the last episode of Lord of the Rings. So,
wow,
I have been making time to watch them. Those are movies you can rewatch. Like you can rewatch
Definitely.
and not get sick of it. And I pick up, it's like those you pick up new things all the time. And this time I'm really picking up like on the aspect of good versus evil and that kind of thing and temptation, and all of that. I think that they're pretty cool topics. And my boys Frankie anyway is a bit older. Harry just loves the fighting part of it, let me tell you. But and the gruesomeness of the orcs and the like all of that. And Frankie's just really getting into the excitement of it all and everything. So we're almost finished that now. So that's been great.
Lord of the Rings, the movies, I love that you can't really make those movies and avoid some of the good versus evil and there's like great scenes. Like you talk about the temptations, when Frodo offers Aragorn the ring. I love that scene where he closes his hands like, I would have followed you.
That's
into
right.
the very fires and all that.
I know you would have. Yeah.
Sam's loyalty to Frodo.
Yes,
I love. Oh man, I really love that.
That's a beautiful relationship.
Yeah. It just means that the Lord of the Rings movies have depth to them. They're not just about sword fights and arrows and elves and it's a lot more than that.
There's a purpose for every scene and it's amazing. Also, seeing the scenery of New Zealand as well. We really love seeing that. Since we can't go over there, I haven't been able to go for a while.
Yep, every time you go there, Caroline will go, Caroline's not in New Zealand. That is not New Zealand. That is Middle Earth.
It's
Middle
she's in
Earth.
Hobbiton.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
totally. I mean, we had photos with the, what are they called now? Not the orcs, the trolls last time. And when the trolls came up on the screen, I'm like, look, Frankie, we had pictures. We got to go to Weta Workshop. We had photos with the trolls.
Yeah. I think it was our second episode of Catholics of Oz where you gave us a behind the scenes because you got to go into the cool part of Weta Workshop.
Yes, we got a personal tour because my husband's friends with somebody who works there who has enough influence to be able to take us through not with the public.
The non-touristy parts. Yeah, that's cool.
Because they're friends. It was amazing. Cool. Yeah. It was
great.
All right, let's... Yeah,
sorry, guys. Just one quick question. Have they finished one of the series of Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, it's all done.
Amazon? Are you talking about Amazon or?
Yeah, have they finished one of the
series?
The series? Were they doing a series?
Amazon is producing some kind of a prequel series, I think.
That's right. It's a prequel, isn't it?
And they spent, was it $1 billion? I might be making that up, but it was an extraordinary amount of money on producing it. And it's in New Zealand, so, but don't know.
Goodness.
Don't know much else about it yet.
I remember hearing about it. I hope it will be good. What happened.
Yeah,
maybe it's been just toned down because of the COVID. Maybe they've just had to stop production.
Could be.
Could be. Okay, all good.
My secret fear is that they're going to Game of Thrones it, and I really hope they don't do that.
Really? No.
That's the one, just some things that I've read. Anyway, I hope I'm very wrong anyway.
I just wanted to ask you guys, but was it a Tolkien make a prequel?
Tolkien wrote all kinds of things about.
Oh,
yeah.
did he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's got the Silmarillion has stories from before. Yeah, that like thousands of years before. And they're all. Yeah, there's like.
Okay.
He was prolific in writing all about. Caroline, you gave me a book 2 Christmases ago.
I did,
and it was like poems from Middle Earth and a few other stories and what. Yeah.
Wow.
Did I get that one from Word Workshop?
New Zealand. I'm pretty sure you got it from.
I got it from Word Workshop for you. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was your birthday. Yeah, that's right.
It's my birthday.
It's your birthday. Yeah. You're lucky I didn't give you the ring. That would have been too hard for me to part with, unfortunately.
There.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up there then. So we want to thank you all for joining us for episode 57 of the Catholics of Oz. And before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Catholics of Oz. Today, we would love to thank Michael P., John T., Nicholas W., Janet K., and Nancy. Through their generous donations at sqpn.com/give, they make it possible for the Catholics of Oz and all of the other shows on Starquest to continue. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And thank you so much to the patrons who are helping the network out, because we are able to have new shows that have been started. So we mentioned Let's Science and Secrets of Stargate, and who knows what else is on the horizon. So thanks so much for that support. Please remember also to pray for the network as well, because your prayers are just as important as the financial contributions that the network receives. Also, we'd love to know your thoughts about the topics that we discussed today. We talked about quite a few things, so please feel free to send us any feedback. You can send that feedback by visiting sqpn.com/Oz, spelled OZ, where you can also find our show notes, and we've got quite a few links to share with you today. While you're at the SQPN website, you can sign up to the Insiders Club newsletter and get updates about your favorite shows, which is at sqpn.com/about/newsletter. Or if you are in the good old US of A and you're listening from there, you can join the Starquest fan club mailing list by texting Starquest to 66866. Send Starquest to 66866. I've always wanted to say it like that. All right, so you can also visit us at SQPN, the SQPN Facebook page, which is at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. And don't forget that the Catholics of Oz has its own Facebook page, which you are more than welcome to come and join us for, and see Caroline's cat in an imaginary box photos, the latest thing that she posted there. And that's at facebook.com/Catholics of Oz. We can also be reached by email by emailing us at catholicsofOz@sqpn.com. That was a mouthful to get through, Caroline. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Caroline, and for enlightening us with that wonderful science content.
Oh, thank you. And thank you guys for sharing the fun. It's really fun talking about things with you guys.
Yes, and Lino, thank you so much for being on the show, and hopefully next time we do this, we'll be out of lockdown. Let's cross our fingers and do our signs of the crosses. But thanks so much, Lino.
It's been the vaccinating transformable.
Anything's possible.
Yes,
it is. Right. It is definitely.
You can have that one, Lino. Thanks. All right, so thank you so much, everyone. Once again, I'm Lindsay Sand, and thank you so much for listening to episode 57 of the Catholics of Oz on Starquest.